Hello, and welcome to the first edition of the Martha's Vineyard Museum Report. Joining me today are Steve Aubrey, Chairman of the Board of the Martha's Vineyard Museum, and Phil Wallace, our Executive Director. I want to welcome you both here. This is fun. This is our first show, hopefully of many.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I hope that we can do this at least quarterly and maybe monthly to bring the residents and people who live on the vineyard what we're doing at the museum. I mean, it's a very, very exciting project. And Phil, I want to start it with you.
Yeah, sure.
And give me a little history, not that I don't know it, but for all those out there, a little history about how the museum originally started.
Yeah, you know, we are the original historical society on the island, the Dukes County Historical Society. And we're quite proud of that. We're almost 100 years old. 1922 is when we started. Very exciting. We then progressed over time to acquire in the 1930s the home that we're at now in Edgartown, the Cooks County property that we're on. Shortly thereafter, in the 1950s, we started to build the library and the vehicles and vessels area where we house our vehicles. And then in the 90s, acquired the last part of the parcel. So we have about an acre right now in Edgartown. So over the last 100 years, our campus has grown. And indeed, our name has grown. We went from the Dukes County Historical Society to the Martha's Vineyard Historical Society, and then ultimately to what we are now, the Martha's Vineyard Museum. All that over the last 100 years.
It has been an exciting time.
It has been a journey,
Yes,
and we're still on it.
We certainly are.
Yeah.
We're about to enter a whole new phase. Yeah. Steve, tell me a little bit about what we're looking forward to here.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a really, really exciting project. We've got, as you know, we had the opportunity to purchase the old Marine Hospital, built in 1895. And what better place could there be for the Martha's Vineyard Museum in such a historical building? It's an exciting venture for all of us. I say we've outgrown our wonderful little split space in Edgartown, and this gives us an opportunity to expand our collection and create a museum for the entire island, not just people that may stumble upon it in Edgartown.
I really feel transformation is the word we use at the board and in the community. And I've been coming to the island for 50 years of my life, and I really didn't know the museum, and I didn't know how important all of this was to the island. And that's really what we're doing. We're trying to create a place that's for everyone on the island. And the home that we're going to be in Vineyard Haven, is extraordinary. It really allows us to do the transformation we've been talking about. So it's just beginning, but I've been blessed to been brought in to help make that move. So we're all about that now.
The building itself is quite extraordinary. When you think about 1895, a Marine Hospital, and a fun little fact that Vineyard Sound was the second most traveled seaway in the world after the English Channel. So you think of all the sailors coming into this area that may have needed care. And so it's really the history behind the building itself makes it a purposeful place for us, which is great. And then when you stand up on that hill and look out over the Vineyard Sound and the lagoon, you just think, wow, this is pretty special.
It really is one of those wonderful spots.
Yeah.
As you know, I grew up right in that area. I had a friend in school whose father was a surgeon in that hospital. And probably one of my first doctors had been a surgeon in that hospital. And it's a place, when I came home from the Tisbury School, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I'd ride my bike through their parking lot to come home. So, you know, that building has always fascinated me since I was a little kid. And I'm so glad that now it's really going to be preserved, and for a wonderful cause. It's going to become a vineyard building. It's for the whole island, that whole thing.
And you know, part of the extraordinary history is after it was that Marine Hospital where you rode your bike through, the St. Pierre family bought it, and it was a summer island for 50 years. And I can't tell you how many alums I meet all around town, and boy, do they tell me some stories. Everything from ghost stories to play stories, but it's all a lot of fun. So there's a rich history that happened after the Marine Hospital. hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had the fortunate occurrence last summer to be up there with my iPhone. and I ran into Barbara St. Pierre's daughter. And she started to tell me a little bit about what her mother's dream was for this place and how open it should be. And I said, you stop right there just a minute. And I got my iPhone out and did a little video, which I'd like to play for you all right now.
Hello to all you lovely people watching this video. I am the very proud daughter of Barbara St. Pierre, who always wanted this building right here to be available for islanders. She always felt that this property served islanders in maintaining and sustaining health and in developing youth and always wanting the best for the island residents. We are so glad today, and I speak for my mother, although she has passed, that the Martha's Vineyard Museum will be open to the public and available for all to enjoy this lovely property. Many, many children and adults have appreciated this beautiful space. And I'm so grateful to the Martha's Vineyard Museum and to all of the donors and the people who are making it possible so that this property can be preserved as the Martha's Vineyard Museum for generations to come. Thank you.
Wow, that was exceptional. I mean, I don't think we could have planned better for that. That was live, on site, and with real passion. That's what we're all about.
You really get a sense for the place too as she came around, and then you see that the beautiful view. The amazing thing about that is how many of us were coming in on the ferry and all of a sudden saw this big white building on the hill and said, what on earth is that? And there that camp existed. It was among the trees. It was inside. No one ever knew it was there. Many people didn't know it was there. And
I didn't know.
To this day, people would get off the ferry and say, "What on earth is that?" So it's really it's been a discovery, and I think it's going to be a place that people are going to discover again and again as they get involved with this new museum.
Steve, you had mentioned that the board decided to buy this in 2011, and it's now really become a cultural asset of the museum and the island, and we've been really purposeful about that. That whole front lawn, when you took down the trees, that's what it looked like in 1895. And I knew as a kid, I didn't really know it existed up there, like you said.
Yeah, those great postcards of the old Marine Hospital are really something else.
Yeah.
And a lot of it looked like that when I was a kid.
Well, there you go.
You know.
Yeah. So
I hate to say it, but that was about 70 years ago.
You're aging yourself.
I know.
But we're bringing history back, but we're refreshing history and restoring it. It's really going to be exceptional. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to jump in and say that the next chapter is, so what are you doing? And we've done a lot of planning, and you'll see a lot this summer of what we're doing. But I'm just going to say we're on the move now. Now we've done our planning, we have it, we have a vision, and we now are really locking into getting it done. And hopefully within, I'll say, a year or so, depending upon permits and the like, we're going to see this come to life. We actually have already begun. We have begun to restore the building, different parts that are in need of care. But you may want to.
Yeah, I think last summer was a time where we really started opening this up to the community. We had a number of events up on the hill, and they were well attended. I think people really enjoyed getting to see the building inside and out.
Yeah, I agree.
We actually came out with a new logo to freshen up the image of the museum, so it would feel more contemporary, a place that people wanted to go to. I think there's, of all generations really, because I think there's this stigma around old historical societies that, but when you think about the assets that this museum has, our research library, I mean, nowhere on this island are you going to get the kind of information that you can get in the library. And the number of artifacts we have, but all of it goes so far beyond just that structure on the hill. It's really what's going to happen inside of it, which I think is really exciting. I often use an analogy of Martha's Vineyard being a wonderful national park, which we know it's not. But when you go into a national park like Yellowstone or Yosemite, there's a visitor center.
Yeah.
And you learn about the history in different parts of the park, and then you go and explore. Well, our new location, when you think about it, it's about an 8-minute walk from the steamship. Go up there and learn and discover and connect with the island so that you can go out and explore. And that may be going up to the Gay Head Light. It could be going to Edgartown to see the old, whaling captains' houses. It could be going to our existing campus that's going to still be in Edgartown with the Thomas Cook House, which a little fun fact about that is the Thomas Cook House. Thomas Cook was the first customs agent in this whole region. So any of those ships that were coming through this area had to stop and be inspected by Thomas Cook. And you learn a lot about the trade and what was going on around here in those days. So.
And the town looked very different then. I'm going to harpen back on something you mentioned, the new logo. And I'm going to hold it up here. And I think we owe everyone a little story about how that logo occurred and how our vision has changed over the last year. That logo is to reflect the people and place of this island, its great diversity, the fact that there are 6 towns and then many, many more different communities, and a wonderfully rich culture here that we owe ourselves as an island to tell about, to interpret. So on that journey of creating that very fresh, new, bold, colorful logo, we all decided to investigate and change our mission. And that's a really big deal. When we talk about transformation, you can't be more transformative than when you tackle your mission and you say, you know what, we're changing it. And today, that mission is to inspire all people to explore, discover, and strengthen their personal connection with this island, its people and place, and its diverse heritage, its culture and nature. And we're bringing it all together for the entire island. This is not a project just moving a building. This is about how do we tell all the story on this island. And that logo is to reflect that. And I really think it does. It's very exciting.
It actually really does. And you think about that connection to the island for all ages. We want kids that grow up here, and we're very involved with the school system already. Yeah. But to have them have a sense of pride of place. And when they realize the important role that this little island off of Massachusetts has played in world history, it gives them a real sense of pride. It's just one of the reasons I got so involved is these wonderful little pieces that Dukes County Intelligencer, they come out, they're published a couple times a year, but the stories in here are really amazing, and it does get you to understand what place Martha's Vineyard had in world history. One quick one that I learned about is in World War II, before the invasion of Normandy, the north shore of this island was used for people for the people that were going to go and invade Normandy to do drills, to practice, and that's our little island. Just one little fun fact.
You mentioned also the education. I think we should talk a little bit about what we do and how we work with the kids. And Anne Ducharme, our education director, and how she goes out and talks to the kids.
Yeah, it's a fundamental part of who the museum is and what the island really deserves. Half of the school children on this island are engaged, if you will, with our program, our curriculum. Anne Ducharme, our fearless leader of education, goes out into the schools. Primarily the elementary to middle is where we focus our attention, but we have internships with the high school and work very closely with all the schools. But half the children are touched, if you will, by our educational programs. We aspire to more. But that's really quite something I don't think many people know. And our goal is to create life learners that are proud about who they are on this island, but understand the rich history of this island, so that history is relevant in their lives, in all of our lives. And they actually teach up. Their parents come and engage in everything. We know that as parents, grandparents of kids. We just had an incredible program on the Heath Hen, 13 weeks in the schools. And I can't tell you how much good response we got from teachers. They were learning about an island they never knew about through the hearts and minds and voices of their kids.
It was fun when that exhibit opened on the Heath Hens. We flipped it around so the kids became docents.
Yeah, wasn't that great?
Giving people
Yes.
of our age tours of the museum. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this summer, we're going to expand that notion of education really to ask the question, how did we all come here? There's a great deal of conversation about immigration, we all know, on the national stage. And we felt it was very important that we actually reach out to ourselves and figure out who are we on this island. And we have an incredible program that's going to begin thanks to Mila Lowe at the museum, June 16th, our opening day, that's going to tell that story, who we all are. And I think that'll be incredibly important for the children to understand and everyone on the island. So
yeah, it really it enables us to be sort of a cultural hub for the island.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and a culture and these cultures that have lived on for generations. And I think this exhibit really is testimony to that and how incredible it is. And I think why we're all so proud to be living here.
Yeah. No, it's all about that word heritage. Diverse heritage that's in our mission is very important. We all came from a place. We're all here now as a part of an island community. We're living, growing, learning together. There's a lot of true grit on this island, and that's really meaningful.
Well, you often hear the word refuge when it comes to immigrants and any of us that have called this place home. I think it becomes a place that is welcoming for people from all different backgrounds, and the exhibits that we will continue to have and the programming that we have is going to be around that, whether it's the African American history here, the Jewish history, the Brazilian history, the history of the Native Americans. It goes on and on. But it's really, we have an opportunity and an obligation to teach people about that history and the cultures that live on today.
Yeah, it's funny. We had a lot of conversation about the word museum. You were asking about the history of the organization. And really my sense is that we are far more than a museum. You use the word cultural hub. I don't know what the true word is, but that's probably the closest because we have so many different communities that we can be a portal to each of them and receive stories back that we can help tell. There are 1 million people that come across on the ferry every single year that are wondering, what is this magical island that I've heard so much about? Well, we really don't try and tell that story in that way.
Cultural hub is really, I think, so important.
Well, I think our actions will speak, louder than those words. If we true to what our mission is, we will be much more than four walls. We've all talked a lot more about the fact the building is critical and the project is critical as a place. We need to do that because we have 17,000 artifacts. We need to house those and steward those, but we need to tell those stories, and those stories are not only going to happen at the place, they're going to go outside of the place.
And the building is important in the regard that where we are right now in Edgartown, we don't have the climate control, the museum quality climate control that we can store these wonderful artifacts that we have. And so it'll give us an opportunity not only to store and exhibit what we have, but perhaps down the line get into partnerships with other museums around the country. And you think about the Smithsonian that just opened the African American wing, and part of that exhibit is Oak Bluffs. Well, who's not to say someday we couldn't do an exhibit with the Smithsonian around the history of the African American community on this island? It'd be wonderful. We can't do that in our current space because we don't want to bring those precious artifacts up unless we can protect them.
Right. We're also restoring a very historic building, going back to
1895.
yeah, and the whole Naval Medical Service prior to that started under President John Adams, and there's really only a couple of those hospitals remaining, and our plan is to take it back to its original look of,
Yes.
of 1895.
And I'll go even further than that. The entire site goes all the way back into very early Native American history. We're talking 10,000 years, and the whole story of what that site is and how it's become a marine hospital and then a summer camp, and now it's being transformed. The site itself is alive. History is constantly pushing us to think about who we were and who we are now, and that site does it for me. It's
Yeah, we're working very hard with historic preservation people to make sure we can bring that back to its original beauty.
Yeah.
And that's a big undertaking, but it's also a responsibility on our part to make sure that we can adhere to those original design of the building and purpose of the building.
Yeah. You might also tell us a little bit about what's going to happen to Edgartown.
Edgartown, like every other community on this island, is part of the fabric of the history of the island.
Absolutely.
And the Thomas Cook House, as I mentioned earlier, is quite an extraordinary piece of history on this island. It is a house that we are going to keep. We're going to keep some land around that house to do some programming. One thing we would love to do is create this thing called the Cookhouse Gardens, so that people can enjoy that property almost the way it is now. That wonderful open space in the heart of the Edgartown Village would be a wonderful place for people to learn a little bit more about the history and be an extension, if you will, of the museum in Vineyard Haven, where it will be. The point of all this is to make it welcoming for everybody on the island, not just people from Edgartown or people from Vineyard Haven or Oak Bluffs. It's in a location now that's going to be very accessible. We're going to have parking so that people can come in. We know the parking is a little tight in Edgartown these days, and that's not why we're leaving. We're leaving because we want to do something wonderful for the island and for the collection.
Yeah, the vision for the entire island is to make sure we pay special attention to all the multifacets of this jewel that we call Martha's Vineyard. And one of the things I encountered when I first came on was this feeling that we were moving out of Edgartown. And we thought long and hard, the board did, that is not what's going on, and we need to figure out how to really address that. And to your point, creating even more of a special place at this property is what we're all about. So we're trying actually to give back more in the form of this Cookhouse Gardens, more open space program area in an historic and educational way right in the heart of Edgartown is the new vision for that property. So our hope is that those of Edgartown will see this as actually a better thing than we currently are now. That's our vision.
Yeah, and I will say that, and we've gotten very positive response from what we want to do with the Edgartown campus. Another piece of this is our move to Vineyard Haven, and being that building up on the hill and hopefully attracting people to this wonderful new museum. Many of the shots that you've taken, Denny, with your drone show this wonderful view that you see and when you stand up on that hill. Well, what's going on beneath is really a historic waterfront, and it's still a working waterfront. And we would love to be part of making sure that we can preserve things like Nat Benjamin's boat building and some of the open space down there that can tie very nicely into this museum on the hill. A historic maritime waterfront would be pretty special, where people would have better access to the water. Stroll up, there's a new marina going in, and stroll up to the museum. And by the way, we're going to have a cafe up there. So wouldn't it be amazing that on a sunny day in the middle of summer, instead of people running to the beach or just coming to the museum on a rainy day, saying, why don't we go up to the museum for lunch? Because we have an opportunity to be able to have people sit and enjoy this wonderful view. So we have lots of positive things coming out of this move.
Yeah, to complement that, we're the museum for, by, and with the island. What does that really mean? We talked about maybe we're a cultural hub, and that is true. But when you think about a museum in the different communities that we've probably all lived in over our years, you have science museums, art museums, history museums, children's museums. It goes on and on. They're these multifaceted jewels in and of themselves. We're the museum of all that for this island. So we're thinking very hard, what does science mean on this island? What does children's museum? What does art museum? We started as an historical society, and we're now blossoming into both a cultural hub, but also a multi-dimensional museum that needs to think hard about what we're interpreting and for whom, because everybody's coming to the museum for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we've also talked about the idea that it's not just about the artifacts or its natural history as well. When you think about the agricultural history of this island, how we've, for generations, people have lived off the sea. What does that mean? How do those two interact? What's happened? We had a great lecture last year, I guess it was last winter, on the history of dairy farming on the island. Now, that's pretty amazing when you think about that and the history of dairy farming actually in the United States and how that impacted this island as well. So those are stories that we can tell. They're very much about not just the stories and history, but the land and what it's, influence it's had.
I learned a great deal from David Foster, who has just written a book, A Meeting of Land and Sea, about the intersection of human and nature on this island and the confluence. It's a wonderful book. I would encourage reading it because it really defines part of the mission that we've just redone and recreated for the museum, but this intersection of nature as the glaciers disappeared and ecology and biology evolved and humans who came to this island. And that intersection between social, economic, cultural, natural, all came together in a very unique way. That story is part of the story that we need to tell at the museum. And it's very exciting because a lot of people, it is, and many people, those million visitors come here for the beaches and the nature, and they don't have any understanding of how those two worlds intersect. So that'll be an exciting story. Yeah.
I'm just thrilled we could get together today and talk about this and have the people of the Vineyard hear what our vision is and what we're planning and what's going on. And construction will be starting very soon up there, or there'll be some banging of nails. And I hope that we can do this either monthly or quarterly. Great. To bring people up to speed.
I love that. Thank you. That'd be wonderful. Yeah. And I will add that over the course of this summer, please come up. Anyone who wants to see it, we will be under construction. We also are in need of support to finish the project. I would be remiss if I didn't at least say that. We're looking for those who believe in what we believe in any form or fashion, because we're about getting this done for the island.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was really fun.
And thank you for joining us today with the first issue of the Martha's Vineyard Museum Report. Hope to be seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.